Hello, everyone. Welcome to Magic in Media, the podcast brought to you by the Vibe Collective and me, Carly D, a reader here at the Vibe Collective. This podcast blends magic with the current pop culture news and moments to show you that magic is all around us every day. We just have to look around and find it. So we find the metaphysical and the magic in the world all around us and share it with you. Welcome to Magic in Media. We've got some cool topics and stories to jump right into today. Without further ado, let's get into it. We are going to start this week's episode off with some pop culture news. If you are in the zeitgeist, you have heard that this week Timothée Chalamet angered some fellow artists and creators. He had his own Mercury Retrograde moment. He basically said in an interview that he compared movies and going to the theater, like keeping it alive, to ballet and opera, basically saying that ballet and opera are like dying arts, and he doesn't want movie making and going to the movies to turn into a dying art that he is a part of. So of course, lots of singers, opera singers, ballerinas, other performers were very offended by this, and rightfully so. This is a very good Mercury retrograde example to maybe not say the not so nice thing that we are thinking, even if it is on the tip of our tongue. So words have power. That is something that I have learned a lot. I always remember one of the first times I went to New Orleans, they really stressed that to us, that our words have power, what we say matters. And he knew it was offensive because right after he said it, he said something like, "Oh, I just lost 14% of my viewership after saying that." But now we see that it's affecting a lot more. Lots of media outlets are talking about this. The Oscars are this weekend, which is another topic we're going to touch on today, but they're saying that this is really putting a dark cloud over his Oscar moment. He was maybe even projected to win, and now saying something so kind of like off color and offensive is definitely painting him in a negative light at a time he should be like celebrating his wins. So let this be your Mercury retrograde reminder to not say something if you're second guessing it, or you're thinking, well, this land or this isn't very nice, but I'm just going to say it. Or even worse, you know that it's going to set someone off or anger them, so you say it. Don't do that. Mercury retrograde is the worst time to say kind of stupid stuff like that and have it communication wise just go totally left, which is obviously what happened for Timothee. He thought he was just gonna kind of say this comment in his interview and brush it off, joke about it, walk away from it. Now people are just pulling up even more times he's kind of thrown digs at ballet or opera. So again, a very Mercury retrograde moment to revisit or remind people of other times he's maybe not said the right thing or put his foot in his mouth, especially around this topic. So this is definitely a Mercury retrograde learning moment for Timothée Chalamet, but another great example of how we can see astrology playing out on a large stage, specifically in the media, in this podcast, and kind of helps us see like, all right, well, I'm going to be mindful of what I say the rest of this Mercury retrograde, which goes until March 20th. And let's just say till the end of March, because there's that shadow period for a week after the Mercury retrograde ends. So continue to be mindful of your communication, how you're communicating, and being very mindful so there aren't miscommunications or misunderstandings. Now, our next topic piggybacks off of this last one, which is the Oscars. I just want to touch briefly on the Oscars and award show season. Obviously, this is a big thing in media and entertainment right now, but these are rituals. These are yearly rituals, ceremonies that we have to reflect and honor. So just kind of think of them as a way that reflection is almost like the way we look at our New Year's resolutions or reflecting on our year on our birthdays or at the end of the year year when we're going into the new year. This is a ritual. The Oscars are a ceremony. But what I really want to highlight about the magic in the Oscars is that there is obviously a magic in storytelling and a magic in the movies. And this is so important, especially in a time like this, to hear stories we relate to, whether they be happy or sad. They are authentic, and movies have always had a way of doing that, right? Of connecting us, of telling stories, of bringing people together. There is so much magic in these movies, but I think the real magic really lies in sharing those stories, creating feelings, creating conversation around those feelings, around those stories. That is what life is really all about. There is so much history in using storytelling to not only tell our stories, but pass down traditions and cultural things. So think of the Oscars, if you're watching them, not only as a ceremony, but a time of ritual, reflection, and ultimately storytelling and the magic behind storytelling. So the Oscars are this Sunday. I love watching the Oscars. I'm a big movie person, so I will definitely be paying attention to this. But yeah. Think about where storytelling shows up in your life besides just movies, and how that connection is very important to all of us as humans, especially now if we are feeling disconnected, if we are feeling maybe anxious or sad. Now is a good time to connect to community and find like-minded people. So keep that in mind as you watch the Oscars this Sunday. Now, what we are going to talk about for most of the rest of this episode is St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is March 17th, so it's coming up next week. And I just wanted to touch on some aspects of luck, the spirituality behind St. Patrick's Day, so you can really think about it in this lens as it's approaching, and maybe work some of this magic and ritual into your St. Patrick's Day. So St. Patrick's Day is widely known for shamrocks, green clothes, and the luck of the Irish. But spiritually, the idea of luck is often misunderstood as a mix of blessing, gratitude, awareness, and openness to possibility. In modern life, people often still experience luck in ways that connect with deeper spiritual themes. But here are some ways that luck shows up today and how we can connect spiritually to St. Patrick's Day. So some modern ways of looking at luck would be right time, right place. Meeting someone and then your whole life changes. That kind of idea of serendipity, or just being at the right place at the right time. Finding a job opportunity unexpectedly. Again, being at the right place at the right time. A little water break. And more spiritual connections are also connected to St. Patrick's Day. So we can interpret these kind of random moments of that spiritual connection, of being at the right place at the right time, or thinking that our spirit guides are kind of putting us in those places. But this random luck is that spiritual guidance, that connection, that alignment. St. Patrick himself believed that God guided his life even through hardships and being enslaved before returning to Ireland. So there is this aspect of hope almost when it comes to luck and St. Patrick's Day, that idea of staying open to possibility, of always looking forward to what good could be coming instead of focusing on the bad. There's lots of even idea around manifesting of, if we worry too much or we focus on negative things, we will manifest those things to happen. So think of modern day luck as being open, as being positive for things to come in. Another thing we can kind of think about is reflection. What luck looks like might be a moment of divine timing or life unfolding in a meaningful way. So pay attention to what's happening around your life, reflecting on it when you are in these right time, right place moments, right? Where else is the divine timing or the unfolding of your story happening? Similar to right place, right time, we have to just think about synchronicities. So, thinking about someone and they suddenly text you, that's a synchronicity. Seeing repeated symbols or messages, especially when you're making a decision, is a synchronicity. Paying attention to that. Opportunities showing up exactly when they need them. Other ways we can think about luck and synchronicity. I love the symbols and message thing because I think if you are thinking about making a big decision or something's looming, really take some time to notice what's happening around you. Lots of people do see animals, birds, as well as numbers as very common symbols, not because it's like common. It's just because that's what's around us. So I do think that spirit uses those things, animals and numbers, a lot to give us messages. And I always tell people, if you're kind of questioning, like, is this a message from someone? Is this a message from my guides? If you feel that it is, it is. We don't have to think about it or overthink messages from our guides too much. If we notice something, we connect to it, then that message is for you, right? So act accordingly, pay attention to the message, write it down, even if maybe you need to revisit it later. But if you see something and you think it's special or you get that special feeling, then know that that message is for you. Another thing I want to talk about with St. Patrick's Day is spiritual connection, or these signs of alignment, reminders that we are connected to something larger than chance, right? Larger than luck. There's a bigger theme, there's a bigger thing happening for all of us. So it is a lot of connection with spirituality, I feel, on St. Patrick's Day, even with the Catholic faith, that connection to saints and their stories. Talk about storytelling, lots of saints have very interesting stories. So that is something to think about as well. Now, digging into some symbolism, why we see the shamrock is to explain the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's a Catholic thing. So that is a very symbolic thing for St. Patrick's Day, the shamrock. But I did just want to know why we see it, what the symbolism is behind it. But it kind of just shows how something ordinary can take on more of a spiritual meaning. Something in nature can take on a spiritual meaning, like a shamrock. And we're going to talk about four-leaf clovers, being a sign of luck as well. And that again taps into that, we see lots of signs and numbers and in nature because, again, that is where we are. That is what is around us. In modern culture, we often say someone is lucky if they have good health, a loving relationship, safety and stability, and opportunities. But spiritually, St. Patrick's Day reminds people about the shift from luck to blessings. And that's where some of the spirituality, the roots of St. Patrick's and Catholicism would come in. But there's a famous Irish prayer often attributed to St. Patrick with this mindset of, may the road rise up to meet you, may the wind be always at your back. The focus is gratitude for life's gift, not just random fortune. So again, when you're walking down the road, may it rise up to meet you. May things get luckier. May things get a little easier for you. But we do have to have this gratitude for the little things like that. May the wind be always at your back. The next line is, may the sun shine on your face. These are simple things, but it ties into the idea that if we show gratitude, we will bring more luck, joy, and happiness into our life. So be grateful for the little things. Be grateful for everything, really, and you'll just see more positivity and more luck coming into your life. In modern psychology and spirituality, luck often comes from being open to opportunities, taking action, helping others, and maintaining hope. So those are the ways we can create our own luck. Those are the ways we can tap into more luck around us, right? I'm going to repeat those again. Being open to opportunities, taking action, helping others, and maintaining hope. I think that putting out good energy will always bring good energy back to us. So really pay attention to that too when it comes to helping others and being there for others as well. So we are going to talk about luck a little bit more, where we see it, where it kind of comes from. And the English word luck comes from the Middle Dutch word luck, Luc, okay, meaning happiness or good fortune. And it became popular in Europe during the late medieval period when gambling games started to spread. So luck did come in the way around the heels of gambling. People believed outcomes weren't purely random, that there was a supernatural force or fate that influenced them. So when they're gambling, they believed, of course, that there was more than just random luck, that there was spiritual connection, there was a fate that was influencing them. So that is where we really first saw luck come to be when it came to kind of gambling, which is interesting, right? But ancient people used magic for good luck as well. So across cultures, people carried charms, talismans, and amulets to influence luck. This is something I'm going to talk a lot about in my Make Your Own Luck class, which is actually on Monday the 16th. So if you want to learn more rituals about luck, abundance, things you can actually do to bring more of that into your life, definitely check out my class. That is on Monday, March 16th. It is sign up open, link through our bio on our socials, or you can sign up on our website, thevibecollective.co, and that is the Make Your Own Luck class with Carly D. But I will be talking a lot about talismans, charms, different ones, different cultures, how they used them to bring luck in that class. So we will have some examples of the kind of talismans and things that people have carried in the past, but magic was often seen about protection rather than controlling fate. So carrying lucky talismans a lot of the time in spirituality has to do with protection. So we will talk more about that in my class on Monday. Now, talking about symbolism, back to four-leaf clovers and them being rare is very important, but they are an ancient symbol, a famous symbol of luck. So there are only about one four-leaf clovers in every 5,000 clovers. So the fact that they're rare is what helps make them lucky. But the ancient Celtic people believed that they also protected against evil spirits. Again, big connection with old ancient magic and luck, meaning protection. We have to remember back in these medieval times and stuff too, that protection was very important. People were more likely to kind of rob your family, on the side of the road, or crime was just a lot more rampant in these times. So that is why I also think we see a big emphasis on protection when we're talking about kind of medieval or older magic. But they did also believe that the four-leaf clover not only brought you luck, but protected you against evil. Later, the Christians linked the four leaves to faith, hope, love, and luck. So very similar in symbolism to what we see in the shamrock, the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Christians then linked the leaves of the four-leaf clover to faith, hope, love, and luck. So just other ways we see nature show up in symbolism and magic. I actually have, now that I think about it, interesting, but I do have a shamrock tattoo on me. So talk about talismans having symbolism on you. I do always think that's kind of fun when St. Patrick's Day comes around, that I have a shamrock tattoo. But for those of you that don't know, I am an Irish Mexican. So I pull a lot of my magic and culture that I'm teaching all of you here at the Vibe Collective from my culture, which is Irish. So yeah, if you didn't know that about me, I am half Irish. So that is why I have the shamrock tattoo. And that is why I kind of teach these luck classes, and then in the fall I teach our Dia de los Muertos class with what I've learned from my Mexican side. So that's just a little bit about me. But this is why clovers became connected to St. Patrick's Day, because of that symbolism in the nature that we saw with them. Now, the surprising background of the phrase, the luck of the Irish. So if you're Irish, you probably already know this, but the phrase didn't originally mean luck. It was actually said kind of sarcastically, that the Irish were actually quite unlucky. So the luck of the Irish was kind of like a joke, when it started out. But it does come from the story that in the 1800s, many successful gold and silver miners in the American West were Irish immigrants. People started saying that they had the luck of the Irish, but it was often said sarcastically, implying success was accidental rather than skill. Over time, the phrase became positive and associated with Irish folklore and charm. So, again, said sarcastically, but I do think that's kind of a funny origin story of the luck of the Irish. And again, create your own luck, create opportunity. These immigrants moved to go find a better life for their family. So, that is even an example of seeing how luck can be made is if we change up our circumstance, we take some opportunities. But let's keep going on why we saw that in history, magic and luck were often the same idea. In ancient cultures, luck was rarely considered random. So, for example, in ancient Rome, people worshipped Fortuna. So, she was a goddess who controlled fate and luck. Again, connecting that there couldn't simply be chance. There has to be some higher power, some spiritual being who's affecting what's our fate here on earth. Same thing with Greek culture. Lots of other cultures would worship goddesses and saints to help their luck, essentially. People prayed to these deities to help change their fortune. So again, something we've seen a lot in ancient culture. And our last kind of lucky symbolism thing I'm going to touch on today is lucky numbers. Existing in different cultures, different societies believed certain numbers bring good or bad luck. Some examples of this is 7 is considered lucky in Western culture, often appears in religion and folklore, and the number 8 symbolizes wealth and prosperity because its pronunciation sounds like prosper or to prosper. Numbers were believed to carry mystical energy. So think of your lucky number. Lots of people have their own lucky number, not just one that we all use in our society and culture, but that is another symbol or thing that you can lean into on St. Patrick's Day. And there are quite a few other symbols, but just some well-known ones would be the horseshoe, the crescent shape, the moon is often used for protection as well. So just a couple other symbols we see when we think about luck. Definitely the horseshoe being a big one. So yeah. Those are some things that you can think about, bring into your culture for St. Patrick's Day. I will have a ritual that I will be posting in honor of St. Patrick's Day, so keep an eye out for that on Tuesday. So thank you so much for listening this week, and as always, find the magic in your own life.